trying to get this ridge built. And a town grew up there and was really quite a deal for quite a while. Another view, I threw this in, it's kind of hokey in a way, but I think it's obviously a posed picture of the railway coming across and a couple of Native Americans in their blankets kind of looking wistfully at this train thinking, oh my God, what is coming to us? You know, it's the change of their way of life. This station at Canyon Diablo, no longer there, but it used to be a major kind of deal. A great place that very few people know about, Johnson Canyon to the west of here, a little bit west of Williams, where this railroad had to go through the Mogollon Rim. And I mean go through it literally because they had to bore a long tunnel and then come out on this huge trestle to get down the Mogollon Rim. The tunnel is still there. The railroad has bypassed it, but it's a wonderful, wonderful place. Railroad got to the Grand Canyon in 1901. This is, I think, the lumber railroad. This is Teddy Roosevelt in 1903 coming to the Grand Canyon on the Santa Fe. And you know what? His sister once said he wanted to be the bride at every wedding and the corpse at every funeral. And obviously he had to be the train engineer too. This is the old section house downtown, right downtown on San Francisco Street. The old rail yards, and you can see water tank cars and cattle cars and all this stuff. Okay, this is a cool picture, and I know there's someone in the audience who called me out on this, and I apologize for it. See the 1888 there? I took that literally, but anyway, this is the first lumber mill establishment in Flagstaff. And I kind of took this 1888 as the kind of verbatim date. Turns out it really was a little bit earlier than that. But this shows the 7 a.m. whistle blowing at the Ayer Lumber Company. Edward Ayer came out here from Chicago and started this lumber mill. It's up against the crest of Mars Hill. Later became known as the Arizona Lumber and Timber Company. But this is, without any doubt, the earliest view of any of the lumbering activity in northern Arizona. And I think it's just extraordinary. Okay, so we go to the Reardons. We already saw D.M. Reardon. This is M.J. Reardon. D.M., Michael Reardon, and Tim Reardon. Mike and Tim were brothers, and they were half-brothers of D.M., who I told you earlier was the Indian agent up at Fort Defiance. D.M. came to Flagstaff at the invitation of Edward Ayer to go to work in the mill, and then decided to bring his two brothers in, and they bought the mill and ran it for many years. Brian and Lois Chambers, who are descended from the Reardons. It's a great story. I have, in putting together this book, very little on the early lumbering industry. So through a serendipitous meeting, while we were working on the book, I saw them, and I knew they were descendant, and I said, hey, you guys, you don't happen to have any little old picture of the early days of the industry and your family? And Lois looked at me and said, yeah, we have 2 trunks full. I said, what? And she said, well, come over anytime. So I went and just extraordinary old pictures. This is early on, before it became Arizona Lumber and Timber. Just this is right after the Reardons took it from the Ayers. Another view of the drying yards there. They established a railroad to go out in the forest and harvest timber. They had a commissary over at Milton, which was kind of like a general store, and this shows the families in front of that. This is Tim Reardon and Ed McGonigal. And you see everything, or samples of a lot of things they made, and it was really quite incredible. shingles, lath, curtain rods, fence pickets. I mean, you name it. And you see the two giant trees that are held up beside? And it's just very incredible. So that was their huge mill. Far and away the largest employer this town has ever seen. Up under the crest of Mars Hill, there's a motel there and a bunch of car dealerships now. So not sure how far we've really advanced.
Was that the Saginaw mill?
No, this was Arizona Lumber and Timber.
Okay, but it was.
And Saginaw came in much later. But this is a shot from Mars Hill of my co-author, John DeGraff. Look at that. I mean, it's just incredible, the amount of timber that they were harvesting off this forest and milling. That's another shot of it. You see the mill ponds there beside the railroad tracks. This is an interesting thing. This is Clark's Valley, before there was a dam across Walnut Canyon, and this is now submerged under Lake Mary. But there was a second lumbering family here, the Greenlaw family, very early on. This is their mill out in Clark Valley, underneath what's now Lake Mary. And in real dry years, when the lake goes way, way down, you can walk across Upper Lake Mary and go across to the other side, and you can see all these gears and saw wheels and all this stuff and just laying around in the dirt. The ruins of the Greenlaw Mill. That is the Greenlaw Mill at the Cliffs. And very few people even knew there was anything out there, but it's right out by the Flagstaff Mall. It was a major mill, and at one time I think they were milling something like 65,000 board feet a day at the Cliffs Mill. Well, just showing you how they had to do it in those days. And the big wheels, which all have seen and kind of know about. Then they'd skid them onto these steam loaders and put them on the trains. This is a trestle out by Belmont that they built, and the remnant of it is still there. Boy, I've got to get going here. This is from the Coconino National Forest Service archive, and it's a great picture. It shows the mill pond, all the logs, and they're coming up the conveyor to go to the saw room. Okay, so here's a question for you. Why did they come and dump them in the pond, the log? Why?
Loosen the part.
Yeah.
Keep them wet so they didn't get on fire when they milled them.
Well, that's close.
Keep them from cracking.
The real reason was they needed to get all the dirt and rocks and mud off of them, because if they came to the saw room and those big old saws hit those rocks and stuff, it was disaster. So really it was to clean them off and before they brought them up to the saw room. So this is the other great sawmill in Flagstaff, which is now the Wildflower Bread Company in an almost defunct commercial development over on Butler Avenue. Another major operation for Flagstaff. Started by Ed McGonigal. He left the Arizona Lumber and Timber Company and started this mill over there. So at one time you had 3 major sawmills producing timber out of this ponderosa pine forest here in Flagstaff. This is a cute picture also from the Jack and Billy Fay. No, I guess this is from the Coconino Forest. What it shows is the schoolhouse for the loggers' children at the Greenlaw Mill. And the deal was, for school, they would just load these onto the railroad train and this little schoolhouse and take them out to wherever the loggers were working in the forest. And that's where the kids went to school. I think it's just charming. I love it. Okay, one of the other kind of minor industries, but important in the early days, was the big sandstone quarry by the Western Hills Motel in East Flagstaff. This is an 1891 little drawing of the works there at the sandstone quarry. You see many of the commercial buildings, the courthouse, a lot of NAU, my family's building, a lot of stuff built out of that end corridor.